Hi, Ryan. Hi, Armila.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Good.
Good. So we'll wait just a few more minutes for any stragglers to come in. And then if everyone wouldn't mind changing their first and last name on Zoom, change your name on Zoom to your first and last and the organization that you are affiliated with. And you can do that by hovering over your little Zoom window that shows your name, and you can click the three little dots and then push rename. All right, well, I think we should get started. We have some really great presentations today. So I'm just going to get the meeting going. Welcome, everyone. This is the Stormwater Management, Public Education, and Training Committee. Has everyone been able to get the link that I posted in the Zoom chat for the agenda? I will post it there again for some of you who've just joined. So the first thing on our agenda, besides our welcome, does anyone have any public comment? Maybe some events coming up or anything you'd like the rest of the committee to know about?
So Pinellas Park has a call to artists that went out yesterday for some stormwater murals. So we'll keep you guys updated kind of as that progresses over the next couple of weeks. It's specifically in our CRA area, but we will be doing some other ones kind of to the south and north of that area over the summer.
Great, thanks, Kyle. Does anyone else have something they want to let everyone know about? All right, well then we will move into our first presentation, which is going to be from Ryan with Pinellas County, and he's going to be walking us through the website they've designed that helps homeowners or really anyone who's using reclaimed water if they want to fertilize their lawn and they're using reclaimed water. It helps them to better determine. Well, I'll let Ryan explain it. So Ryan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm ready.
Okay. Do you want to share a screen?
Yeah, I'm going to share a screen.
Okay. I'm going to make you a co-host right now.
Okay. Okay. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is on our website at pinellascounty.org/fertilizer is the quick link for the website. And this is our landing page for our fertilizer and landscape ordinance related issues. So right here, you can see the map right here. So it just gives a quick rundown of our ordinance, a few hot topics with it. And under the irrigation, we have a note here that if you're using reclaimed water, you can reduce your fertilization based on the nutrient content of that water. And so what we do is you can click on this map and it opens it up in an EGS viewer. And so here's all the different reclaim zones in the county. And so on those zones, you can then click which zone you're getting your water from. Say, City of Clearwater, it'll give you the wastewater plant it's from, because some of the cities do have more than one wastewater plant. So it depends on where you get your reclaimed water from. Some of the municipalities have different reclaimed water plants. And so it'll give a recommendation on nutrients, on nitrogen fertilizer that can be applied in addition to what the reclaim gives. So that reduction is based on the average between the low and the limit per the county ordinance. It's the average midpoint between the two is what we used as our number for fertilization. And so it's based on reduction of nutrients based on that nutrient content. So if you can see here, depending on what kind of grass, the different University of Florida IFAS recommendations for fertilization are taken into account. And it gives you that range of where your fertilization should be. It also gives the concentrations as well. And the reason we included the concentrations, the average annual concentration, is for places like sports fields and golf courses, because sports fields and golf courses, will be applying different amounts of fertilizer than residential will be. And so they can take that into account for their fertilization needs as well, based on those concentrations. And then, so you can get on your St. Pete, you can see the recommended amounts here in St. Pete are 0 because their concentrations are so high. You don't need to fertilize with nitrogen in St. Pete if you're using reclaimed water. And it's based on a normal water cycle of 3/4 inch per watering, times twice a week watering for your normal watering application recommended by the University of Florida. And that's how that's calculated. And behind the scenes, can you see this? Can you see a spreadsheet?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, just want to make sure it wasn't just sparing the item and it was staring the screen. So this is the spreadsheet behind it that the calculations are done. Rob Burns is the one who came up with this spreadsheet. And what it does is we input that average, annual average of the nitrogen concentration from the different sources. And then it'll give us a readout that we use on our webpage. And that's how it's calculated. We've been updating about every year or two. It doesn't change a whole lot unless there's a big change to their system of how they treat the water. It goes up now a little bit, but not to the extent it would change a whole lot on these calculations per each wastewater plant. But yeah, that's how you do it. And just find where you're at and just click on which one it's from. And different areas will be different amounts, and it'll have that concentration and recommended fertilization rates based on that nutrient content. We also do have a sheet we have that we use during like education events and stuff that have this printed on it, so we can actually hand it out to residents during like we've worked the Reclaim Water Expo or something like that, and they can have that on hand. But it covers all the county reclaim areas. Does anybody have any questions on that?
So Ryan, the areas that aren't colored on the map, does that mean that they do not have access to reclaimed or?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We just updated this end of last year. So it's been updated more recent.
And how long did you say you guys have had this map?
Several years. I'm trying to remember how long we've had it. I didn't initially set it up. I think I want to say at least 4 years, 5 years, something like that.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, definitely share. I think this is awesome.
Yeah. I know this is the third update. I believe we did a second update from the initial. So you updated it once and this is the second update. Yeah, we're trying to debate on how often to update it. Like I said, the numbers don't change a whole lot, even if the numbers on the plants change. It's so little when you're averaging that much, that maybe probably every other year is probably often enough, that it really wouldn't matter a whole lot.
It'd be cool, since we are like the education outreach committee, if as part of the like criteria, when you click on it, if there's a link to, I know some of the facilities offer tours. So like you could do like, you know, find
Oh, yeah,
out
that's
more
true.
about where
Yep.
you're,
Yep.
because I know that's always very eye-opening for people,
Oh yeah.
where the reclaimed water comes from and what it goes through. But no, yeah, this is great.
Hey, Ryan, Tim Kelly. Question, putting my homeowner's hat on, is there a way to relate the square footage of the yard? You know, and so they're thinking of bag size and all that. I was wondering
Right.
what your thoughts are there.
You mean like as far as knowing how much area they have that they're watering or fertilizing?
Yeah, so many pounds per year is what you're recommending. And
Correct.
I'm
Yep.
trying to think of their thought process. Okay, what does that mean to me as far as my application this spring? And
Yeah, you really have to know how much square footage you're starting with to really do any of that. And if you're applying any fertilizer at all, really it's a necessity to know how much to put down. You know, it's recommended that we don't put more in the ordinance. It requires they don't put down more than 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet at a time, with a max of 4 per year. But following recommendations of the University of Florida. So it just depends on knowing that information. Anytime you're applying anything nutrient wise on a lawn, you're going to need the square footage up front. I don't know if there's maybe University of Florida has some easy calculators or something like that for them, or guides for that. That may be a possibility. I think I've seen something from UF before on how to, like a homeowner's guide of how to figure out your square footage of lawn. But I don't recall, that was a while ago that I saw something like that.
Yeah, Doris, that's a good point. Doris, or I think I said John on here, or who else was here from UF? I didn't know. It would be nice, again, putting on the homeowner hat, if there was a calculator too to refer people to, like knowing this information, if they could easily just add in their square footage and like, you know, what type of grass they have. We want to make it as easy as possible, right? We don't want people to
Right.
have to math.
Yeah, that's why we pre-did the math for them on the amount of pounds on it. But the one thing I did see a guide on it somewhere. I want to say it was a UF guide somewhere that they had that because every yard's so different. It's really customized to try to figure out your square footage.
Right.
But it gave a general guide of how to figure out that number.
There was, this is Anna Marie with Pinellas County. There is an article that shows that, and we actually did create at the beginning of the fertilizer ordinance, we did create a calculator, and it was a how to determine, and it was on our website. It would open up as an Excel spreadsheet. You type in what your square footage is, you type in what your NPK of your fertilizer product is, and what the slow release content is right from the bag, and it would tell you how much to put down in pounds exactly.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that's not ADA compliant, so it no longer exists on our website. I would say the article, I could probably find it. I'll look and see if I can find it pretty quick, but it was based off of a UF article that kind of explained how to calculate how much to put down. But like Ryan said, the beginning of the equation is, well, how many square feet do you have? You have to walk your yard, you know, you got to measure it and
Measurements,
figure it
yeah.
out,
Mhm.
because that's the foundation of
Yeah.
where your numbers are going to come from. But I do know from a lot of the literature initially, it was saying, you know, when this recommendation was, or when this ordinance was put in place based on UF-IFAS recommendations, it was at the 1,000 square feet, because that's kind of like the typical urban residential yard is 1,000 square feet. So, you know, even if you only go with that, it's pretty close, you know. If you want to be more exacting, then that's obviously the better way to do it. But But that's why, you know, we just kind of followed the 1,000 square feet as the typical average residential.
Although maybe a quick guide on how to calculate that would be a good thing to add to the website. I'll
Yeah,
think
and
about
like
that
I
in the
said, we
future.
had it,
Yeah.
but it's not ADA compliant. So
Right.
I don't know how we would, perhaps we can work with our marketing and communications team to see if there's a way that they can maybe tweak it or make it, but because it's a calculation spreadsheet, I don't know.
I think it'd be more like a guide than anything else on how to add it up and
Yeah.
calculate your square footage, just like could be a Word or whatever, PDF.
Mhm.
Yep.
I'll look and see if I can find that article from UF.
Any other questions? Oh, now
Or
clicking
even
all over the
thoughts,
place on them.
suggestions, any other comments?
Yeah.
I think this website's great, Ryan. I'm glad that Pinellas County has created this tool for people.
We've tried to promote it where we can. We've been promoted definitely at the Reclaim Water Expos that utilities have had and things like that, and other outreach events. We'll have a handout sheet that we have, basically version of this map.
Have you reached out to like lawn care companies or, I don't know, done outreach to try and show them this tool?
No, I don't think we've done that at all. Also,
Yes, we have.
we have? Okay, I didn't know about that. Sorry.
Yes, we have. Actually, for as long as Pinellas County has had this ordinance, I want to say for this page that was developed, Ryan was probably right about probably more like 5 or 6 years
About
ago.
5 or 6 years.
It's
yeah.
been a while that we've had this page. This website has been part of the Green Industries BMP training for when I was attending them at the extension when Jane Morse was still there. That was a routine thing. This piece was part of that Green Industries BMP training. Now it did kind of fall off a bit, but we also have it in our landscape maintenance BMP training that we were offering every month. It's just a piece of it that says, if you go this route, or when you're working with your customers, if you're trying to identify, issues in the landscape, knowing this reference is here. So we have been kind of piecemealing outreach, but this is really the focus now that Ryan is the program manager, and we're kind of moving to the next generation phase 2 of this ordinance, getting this reclaimed water information out. And that's why, thank you so much for Alana asking Ryan to present this, because this kind of is the kickoff for what we want to do and how we want to get this information out to our citizens this year and moving forward.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for presenting this, Ryan. I know we welcome, any of these new tools to this committee and sharing this. We definitely want to get the word out so more people know about how helpful this resource is to them. So are there any other comments or questions for Ryan before we move on to Stacy?
Yeah, hey, Alana.
Yeah, hi.
This is Garrison Beck with Hillsborough County.
Garrison.
Just wanted to make a quick comment on the calculator that Anna Marie brought up. That got me thinking. For public utilities, we have a water bill calculator on our website where people can figure out how much their water bill is going to be based on how much water they're using and all. And I just looked that up, and I don't pretend to know all the intricacies of ADA compliance, but I do notice that at the bottom of that page, we do have a link that says set screen reader mode on or off. And so I'm curious if that may be something to look into. I'll drop the link in the chat. But that's been up on our website for ages now, I believe. So I'm assuming that fits the compliance. So it may be something to look into. I'll drop the link.
Thanks, Garrison. Yes, if it has that reader functionality, it does meet the ADA compliance. That's a lot of what our marketing and communications team has been working on. But because ours was just a simple Excel spreadsheet that would open up, it didn't meet it. So I'm excited to look at what you have there and see how that formatting is, and if we can do something similar, that would be excellent. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I just put the link in there, and it's the link for the screen reader is at the very bottom of the page. So check it out.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Garrison. Okay, well,
Yeah, I had a question,
sure.
if I could.
Yeah.
It's John McGee with Plant City. How are you tracking effectiveness of the tool? Are you tracking usage somehow, or are you hoping to see a reduction in fertilizer, and how are you going to know that?
We really haven't at this point. It's just getting the information out there and sharing it, but we haven't really tracked that at all. Unless there's something I'm unaware of, Anna.
No, the only thing that we track is hits to the page, which is
Right.
part of our MPDS, annual report for outreach. That's the only thing that we're looking at this point. We have not expanded into that realm just yet.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Looks like we have another question in the chat from John. Do other counties in Tampa Bay have reclaimed water usage?
I think pretty much everybody does, doesn't they? At some level. Depends on the municipality and where the water is coming from. It just depends. Some is direct discharge, some is reclaim. It just depends on your area.
Yeah, as far as I know, just from some of the research that I did when I was a student working on my master's, it's every utility has to report to the state their discharge, basically, and they have to sample that discharge. So that information is there. I don't know if there's anything similar to what this is. We obtained this data, Rob did painstakingly. He actually contacted each of these utilities and had conversations, got direct data from them, and created that spreadsheet. And that's what we do every year or two, is basically circle back with our local utilities for their local information. But I'm assuming statewide that information is out there, because each utility has to report it to the state, and they have to do their respective sampling.
Some of the information is available on their websites. So that's where I got some of it to do the update. And the ones that were missing from the websites, I did call them to get the updated information on the nitrogen total annual average.
Yep, great.
So there are no other similar tools around here, like with the other counties? Like Hillsborough doesn't have a similar?
Well, no, I haven't been looking.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know either.
No, Hillsborough, we don't have one. I saw this one that you guys have a year or two ago and have always been wanting to get around to making one for us, but we don't have one yet.
That might be an interesting partnership to explore, then expanding the website or making something similar.
And we hopefully, it might, once I do get around to it, I might be able to provide some streamlined info, because I am part of the utility. So I'm pretty sure I know the person who can provide me that data instead of having to contact everybody else. So I may be able to have more info once I get around to that.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing any updates and whether maybe the site will expand, or if Garrison, if Hillsborough wants to take a similar approach, maybe you can learn from the lessons that they learned along the way making this website and how they created it. But are there any last questions before we move on to the next presentation?
Just one more comment. I actually got a Teams message. Seminole County has a calculator as well on their website, and we'll definitely look into that, as well as what Garrison sent. I'll plop this one in the chat as well, so people can see the different formats that are out there, and we'll definitely work to get something on our website for a calculator that we can use for Pinellas residents.
Great, thank you.
It says Lara. Lara has it in the chat. Nice, sweet. Thanks, Lara.
You're welcome.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, again for presenting to us. And we'll look forward to any other updates in the future about the website.
No problem.
And I will make Stacy a co-host so she can present next.
Okay, hi.
Hi, Stacy.
Okay, so I've never presented on Zoom, so let me see if I can figure this out. I'm going to turn off my video because it distracts me. So, okay. Let me see. So I just go to the green share screen. Is that correct?
Yep. And then you want to just choose either you can do your full desktop or the specific application like PowerPoint.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Sorry.
And then you want to, I think at the bottom right, you'll see share screen.
Yeah. Share.
There you go.
Okay. And then let me start. Okay, can you see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk to you about our new Living Shoreline and Seawall Enhancement demonstration projects that we've got going on in the county. And so I'm going to go over some Living Shoreline basics first, and then I'm going to focus on our Ozona demonstration project, and then talk about kind of what are our next steps in the county with regard to living shorelines and seawall enhancements. So what is a living shoreline? So this refers to some sort of shoreline protection using natural materials such as oyster reefs, mangroves, or marsh grasses in an area to prevent erosion rather than a material that's hard, such as a concrete seawall. So a traditional seawall, as shown in this graphic, it does provide protection against waves, but there's also some issues. So wave energy is actually one of the issues with a seawall. So when you get high waves from either boat wakes or storm surges, there's a lot of energy in these waves. And so the seawall protects the shore from that, but also the energy bounces off. It gets reflected off of that hard surface. So it creates a lot of erosion potential in the area of the seawall. So you can get reduced water clarity. It stirs up the sediments. So you can actually get scouring, as the image shows here at the bottom of the seawall. And as the waves crash over the top of the seawall, you can get erosion behind that wall, and it can lead to failure eventually. In part because of this sediment, the suspended sediments in this area, there's a lack of habitat and living organisms a lot of times in front of seawalls. So, and as the graphic shows, there's a disconnect between land and water, where normally these would be intertidal zones and you'd have a lot of ability of organisms to move between the land and the water. So a seawall cuts off that connection. Seawalls have a limited lifespan. So the average, I think, is about 50 years. I've seen some that say they might fail in 20 years. You might get 60 years. But eventually a seawall will need to be repaired or replaced. And that's a pretty costly thing to do. So in comparison, here's a natural shoreline, a living shoreline. So again, we get protection from wave energy. And in fact, living shorelines have been shown to hold up really well in hurricane situations. So it doesn't seem like grasses would hold up as well as concrete, but in fact it does, because what happens here, and just in normal conditions from boat wakes and normal storms, the wave energy isn't reflected back off and causing, stirring up of the sediments in that area. And instead it's absorbed by plants and maybe some oysters. And so it gets dissipated instead of being reflected and causing some issues there. You can see that the wildlife can access the water. So you get a good living community. There's a lot of habitat in these areas. The lifespan, there really isn't a lifespan. Living shorelines will adapt as conditions change. So if we get rising sea levels, the living shoreline will adapt to that. You might get a transition from marsh grasses to mangroves. You might get oysters moving up and then mangroves, but it will adapt to the conditions. And of course, if you want to install a living shoreline or need to go in and retrofit something, it's a lot less costly to plant some things and place some oyster bags than to install a seawall. What we're seeing a lot of is a hybrid approach, and this is probably what we'll be promoting most often, where you have an existing hardened structure And then you can put some living elements in front of it. So these pictures all show varieties of this. The lower one shows some oyster reef with grasses planted. The one at the top was one that we just saw when we were out monitoring. So just someone put some riprap, and then some mangroves are starting to recruit there, and you have oysters growing on the riprap in the water. And then to the right, you have some riprap and then some mangroves coming in between the seawall and the riprap. So again, you get your seawall actually gets protected, and you've provided now habitat, and you'll get some filtering qualities. So plants will take up nutrients. Oysters actually filter water. So when we have these living elements, you also get improved water quality. So why are we promoting this in Pinellas County? So in Pinellas County, we have nearly 600 miles of waterfront, and that includes the man-made canals as well as just the natural shoreline. And approximately 340 miles of this is hardened. A lot of it's old, and a lot of our community assets are being protected by these seawalls, and they are vulnerable to storms and these rising sea levels. So we're going to need to come up with a way to go forward from this. So we're going to be updating our comprehensive plan and creating a sustainability and resiliency action plan. And one of the primary goals of these plans is to increase the resiliency of both the natural and built environments. And so living shorelines and seawall enhancements are going to be a part of achieving this goal. So our Ozona demonstration project, in case you don't know where Ozona is, this is an unincorporated Palm Harbor. So basically just east of Honeymoon Island, basically where Tampa Road ends to the west. And it's a little neighborhood, they call themselves a village, but it's unincorporated Palm Harbor. And it was a great little spot just for us to get our feet wet on a project to demonstrate a living shoreline, a seawall enhancement, and to provide some education. So there's at the corner of Bay and Bayshore in Ozona, the road curves, and there's a seawall there that was, I think, just refurbished in 2000. The county owns that seawall. It's an easement off the roadway. There's benches there. A lot of people go there to watch the sunset because it faces west into St. Joseph Sound. And the seawall itself is about 33 meters long. So this is a size that we felt like we could demonstrate a project, and it would be relatable to homeowners who might have waterfront property. So one of the goals is to try to get the general public to embrace some of these elements. If they need to repair or replace a seawall, to at least consider including some living shoreline elements. And you can see in the bottom picture, there's already some riprap at the bottom of the seawall, and then there's just a lot of sand. So this area is pretty vulnerable to storms and, has kind of eroded to some degree. So the steps to go forward with a living shoreline project, to create a living shoreline, you do a site analysis. So we actually hired a consulting firm, ESA, since this is our first project. They have some experience doing living shoreline projects in the area. They did a coastal conditions analysis for us, which basically they looked at the wave energy, the likelihood of direction of big waves in that area, the depth of the water. And based on that analysis, they came up with a preliminary design, and then they assisted us with getting permits. So, what you install as part of a living shoreline in part depends on how deep is the water and what's the likelihood of big waves, what's the wave energy in that area. Once we got our permits, we had to get 2 different permits, then ESA helped us with final design, and we came up with a list of our supplies. What did we need to install? Then we set a date, we solicited volunteers, and we installed our living shoreline. So this happened in October of 2020. We had about 30 volunteers. Because of coronavirus, we split into a couple of different shifts. Everyone wore masks, gloves. Tom's got his mask off here because he was giving people instructions. But we installed 275 oyster bags and 7 reef balls. So there's a close-up of the oyster bags here on the right. They are, we obtained these from Shuck and Share. It's a nonprofit based on the East Coast of Florida. And they collect oyster shells from restaurants, and then they let them sit for about 6 months. And then they have volunteers put them in these, it's a palm oil mesh bag. So it's better than traditional plastic. It will degrade over time. And then we bought the pre-made bags from them. The reef balls are typically used where there's a higher wave energy. We wanted to put a few of them out here just to demonstrate to people that this is another thing that you could do. So oyster communities will come and live on this reef ball. We obtained these from Tampa Bay Watch. They, again, have volunteers assist with creating these. And you'll see where we placed these in a minute. We also planted 100 black needle rush and 100 smooth cord grass. So you can see in the picture on the left, we have some of the reef balls placed right there. The coastal analysis showed that that was the most likely direction of higher wave energy. We probably didn't need them. Again, we wanted to demonstrate that there are different things that you can do to protect your shoreline. And the planting was good for younger kids. The oyster bags weigh about 30 pounds each, but we wanted to involve the community. Most of our volunteers were we had some county staff, some ESA staff, and then community volunteers. So some of the younger people came and helped with planting. And then finally, we created and mounted 2 educational signs on the existing railing, in part with funding from the Regional Planning Council. Thank you, Alana. And we also created brochures for the homeowners. And I have those here. So if anybody would like to have some of those just to hand out to people, we have plenty, so I can get those to you. Just basically describing what's a living shoreline, what are the benefits, both to the environment and to protecting your property. And then on the signs, we have one that's a general what's a living shoreline, and then another about the specific project at this location. So just a reminder, before we had, some riprap and sand. Now we've got hopefully what will be an oyster community and a bunch of plants. We've already seen many wading birds, crabs, fish, and the community does seem to appreciate that this is a good thing. And it will prolong the life of the seawall as well. So again, the steps and then just cost. So to hire the consulting firm to do the analysis, design, and permitting was about $30,000. The supplies are super cheap. So the oyster bags were $5 each. The reef balls were $65. Plants were $1 each. Labor was free. We will go in and plant some of the grasses, got kind of smothered by some debris during the winter. So maintaining a living shoreline does require just checking on it every once in a while. If there is debris, try to move that off. You might have to do a little bit of replanting, but a relatively cheap process. So some of the challenges, permitting, which I think, I guess that's anything that has to be permitted. This is always going to be a bit of a challenge. It takes longer than you think it will. I assumed this is 100 feet. It's a simple little project. It shouldn't be that hard to permit, but it still took months, like a lot longer than I thought. We did hold pre-application meetings with Army Corps of Engineers, SwiftMud, and Department of Environmental Protection, just to let them know, this is what we're thinking. Give us some feedback ahead of time. What are some things you really want to see in our application? So it did, I think, shorten the process. We still ended up having to address some questions on our actual application. In this case, FDP permitted. So I guess SwiftMud and FDP I don't know if they have certain jurisdictions, but we sent the pre-application to both of them, and FDP took this one. If it's not a county project, you would also have to apply to the county for a permit, but the county doesn't permit ourselves. So we got to skip that one. Another challenge was land ownership determination. we knew that out in Ozona, some of the property owners actually own submerged lands. So the homeowner to the north of us, so the graphic at the top there, that red line is the property line, so that they own the submerged lands out past their dock. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to get them on board to let us, include them in this project. So we actually drew up two sets of plans. One, if they, did participate, and then the bottom one is, if we had to cut it off at the property line. They ended up letting us, being excited about it, participating. We did need to get some sort of a formal letter to allow us to come onto their property and place the grasses and the oyster bags. One of our other projects, which I'll talk about in a minute, we thought that the county owned the land all the way on the shoreline, and it ended up that half of it is kind of undetermined. It's some of these land issues are difficult because the deeds are maybe from the early 1900s, and you're trying to figure out who owns it. A lot of times it is state-owned submerged land, and you just need to contact FDP, and they help you get any authorization if that's the case. So just be aware if you're thinking of doing one, that could be a challenge. So our next project, which is actually underway, is out at Felipe Park in Safety Harbor. So those of you who know, there's a large seawall there. It's actually about a half mile, a little over 2,800 linear feet. And then the south side of the park actually has like a soft, a more natural shoreline, mangroves, oysters, sand. So the first thing that we're doing, and we're hoping to install maybe this summer. I keep thinking it's going to happen in the spring. It just keeps getting pushed back. Again, permitting issues. We're waiting on one more permit. But the area in green there on the map, the ongoing Living Shoreline project. So this is where we're starting at Felipe Park. So we received Tampa Bay Estuary Restoration funding, TBERF, to create some oyster habitat and do some enhancement along the shoreline there with some marsh grasses and oyster bags. We're also going to be installing some breakwaters in Little Cove area. And let me show you. So this is not our final design, but this was an earlier design. And basically the cove at the north there, we will be installing a combination of oyster reef domes, those balls, and maybe some riprap, some little attenuation barriers, because the park staff were noticing that there's some sand eroding, and this is a little beachy area that people like to hang out on. They were also seeing some sand being washed up into the mangroves there where that green section is. And so they were worried about losing some of the mangroves due to smothering. So we're going to be planting some, we're going to be placing some oyster bags up in that north region, and then doing some marsh grass plantings. And then these wave attenuation barriers in the cove should help protect the sand. Actually, living shorelines, these types of reefs will hopefully attenuate some of the sediment, so you can actually build up some sediment where it was being lost without these barriers. And then hopefully we'll be getting some seagrass recruitment into there. There's very sparse seagrass in this area, and I think it's mainly because it just gets smothered. Again, there's a lot of wave energy and kind of some mucky sediments there. So we're hoping to see improved seagrass in the area as well. To the south, we're going to be creating an oyster bar. And this is one of the initiatives of the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, is to create more oyster habitat in Tampa Bay. Again, oysters will help filter the water, help clean the water. And so this is a good thing. And there's a lot of oysters naturally in this area. So if we give them some hard substrate, we should get recruitment there. And then finally, along that shoreline, we'll be doing some oyster bags and some plantings just to help with some spots that the park staff noticed were eroding, partly because people are putting in their canoes and kayaks there. So the park staff wants to kind of designate a couple of spots that they want people to place their canoes in, instead of just letting everybody, go through the mangroves wherever they feel like it. There will be also educational signage placed at various points along this area to describe what's being done. So then along the seawall, we just received funding back in January well, I guess it just got finalized a couple of weeks ago, to do design of a few different projects along the seawall. So a seawall enhancement. So again, this is 2,800 feet long. We're hoping to maybe do 4 different treatments in the area, just to, in part, observe how does it hold up? How do people like it? So we're going to do some surveys, aesthetically, what's preferred by people. Because again, the goal here is to demonstrate what could be done to enhance the seawall, and then hopefully people will want to go do that or support it in their community. So there's also going to be a technical working group as part of this grant to help create a decision matrix so that we can prioritize projects in the county. So right now we don't really have like a master plan for living shorelines and seawall enhancement. So we want to try to figure out what's the best way to go forward and expand projects throughout the county. And then there's also going to be monitoring and education as part of that project. So if you would like additional information on living shorelines, this floridalivingshorelines.com is a great website. You can pick a region and it'll pull up actual examples. I know Hillsborough County has a few on this website. Living Shorelines Academy website just has some good general information. And then there's a couple of good documents on permitting. So I guess a couple of years ago, there was some loosening of the permitting requirements, with the idea that if they made the permitting less onerous, then people might be more willing to do living shorelines. So these documents that are linked here are specifically for small scale projects, maybe projects that homeowners would want to do on their own. And, hopefully the permitting won't be so difficult as to just dissuade people from wanting to go forward. So, and then my email is up there also if you would like any more information. And that is it.
Great. Thank you so much, Stacy. That was such an informative presentation. And I would really appreciate if you sent me your presentation so I can get that posted on the website so other people can reference it in the future. I know you provide a lot of really great resources and kind of walk people through how to do this sort of shoreline on their own. So I know that would be really helpful for other people who want to do a similar solution, maybe in their backyard, or other city or county coordinators who want to do the same thing. Are there any questions from the audience?
I had a question. This is Mike Perry from the city of St. Pete. How you doing, Stacy?
Good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good. We have some living shoreline projects too that are in the planning phase right now. And I was just wondering for the permitting, and I'm going to look at those links you sent, but did you need to get like bathymetry and what kind of permit? Was there anything the Army Corps that permit that you wish that you had done differently, or anything like that maybe would help someone like a municipality who has to do a larger project?
Yeah, that's why we hired ESA. So, okay. Because they have had the experience and they have a coastal engineer on staff. So I don't know that they require certain types of models, but it's a good idea. I think it makes them go, okay, they know what they're doing. So like the little Ozona project, again, it was so small. We probably could have gotten away with just, the small projects, those permit links on the last slide, you can just do a drawing, right? But those are like only if you're not going to go past like 10 feet of the 10-foot waterward of the mean high water mark. So it's very limited in scope. So if you're doing a bigger project, I think it's a good idea to have some sort of formal engineer drawing, diagrams, something that, someone who really knows how to deal with this has signed off on. So Felipe Park, again, we've hired, ESA is going to be involved. And, the wave energy could be a lot different, of course, just situation to situation. And so, if you're going to experience larger waves, those oyster bags probably aren't going to be what you need. You need something heavier. So those oyster domes weigh 200 pounds each, and they come in a variety of sizes. I think that was one of the smaller sizes. So if you get higher wave energy, deeper water, you need beefier elements. And so I think that's where probably the permitting agencies just want to know that you're aware of that. And someone that's somewhat experienced has said, this is the level of protection that will work here. So that's definitely not my area of expertise. So we were able just to defer to someone who has that experience. But have a pre-app meeting, so if you've already got a 30% design or something, I'd go ahead and contact Army Corps and SwiftMud and DEP so that they're aware, this is what you're thinking. And then just ask them, what do you need to see to approve this, to grant us a permit?
Well, it's good because I think ESA is working with the city too for some living shorelines. So
Perfect. So they'll cover you.
yeah. Well, thank you. It's an awesome project. I'm looking forward to more of these projects. They're real cool.
Yeah, and I hope, again, the idea with both of these was to demonstrate, to give the public some education. So, you guys, as we get underway, I hope that you'll just spread the word. And obviously Safety Harbor has that awesome boardwalk, and they've done a living shoreline project just south of Felipe Park already. So I think at the end of it, it's going to be a really great, you can take people to that whole area and show them a variety of things related to living shorelines and just coastal resiliency. And I offer options to help protect the shoreline.
Great. Are there any other questions for Stacy? I'm curious, out of everyone here, are there others? I know, Mike, you mentioned you were working on some living shorelines. Are there others who are working on living shorelines, maybe for their city or county? It's all right if not. I wish more of us were, though.
Yeah, I mean, the city has so much private seawalls that the portion that Stacey was talking about, the information for private ownership, that's what I'm really interested to moving forward, because part of our resiliency plan is how we're going to get these private seawalls to be elevated, or at least more softly hardened than just build them taller. So I know that the city's talked about green seawalls and living shorelines. So while we have two municipal projects, that public aspect of it is real interesting too.
Yeah, and I think that's an important, we have at the county an Adopt a Pond program where we work with private pond owners, and I would love to see this eventually morph into like an Adopt a Shoreline, where we could look at people who have seawalls or shoreline and offer them, a little bit of funding and just some technical help, because I think a lot of people do get a little bit frustrated and like just, freaked out by the permitting side of things. So I think if the county could help, create something to help the private shoreline owners, I think that would be great. And that's a goal, but I guess it's just going to take longer than I would like it to. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I love that, Adopt a Shoreline. I see some other, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
Hey, sorry, real quick. Is anybody from Tampa Bay Estuarine program on with us?
I think I thought Joe is on. Joe.
Yeah, and I think the estuary program, and I know through TBERF, they have funded some shoreline projects. They're just we're all kind of getting going on it all, is my understanding. So it'll still be another year or two, I think, before we fully get them implemented. Oh, I see Joe. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, I've been having some technical difficulties whenever I use Zoom, but hey, yeah, I'm here from the Tampa Bay Estuary program, Joe Whalen, Communication Outreach Coordinator. As has been mentioned, TBEP has had interest and has been working on projects with regard to living shorelines. I think especially with regard to the Habitat Master Plan update, that'd be a good source of information in terms of kind of the vision, TBEP's vision moving forward, leaning on living shorelines to achieve some of those Habitat Master Plan update goals. I'm not sure if I ever actually gave space for your question before you asked if there's someone from TBEP here, so I'll turn it back over.
Yeah, I just wanted to just let you say what you just did, basically, because I know that we are working, FDOT and TBEP is working together on looking at doing an initiative, but I didn't want to misspeak either, so I wanted you to take the lead on that. But yeah, that's something that's coming down the pipeline, is looking at an initiative, a living shoreline initiative.
Right. Yeah. I think you. I don't think you misspoke. I think you nailed it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right, thanks.
Great. Are there any other questions for Stacy or comments? I see in the chat people are commending the work over in Pinellas. A lot of people look to Pinellas as a model. You were doing awesome work. Sarah Kessler from Clearwater said that they're going to be doing a study to determine where some good places would be for putting the shorelines. So I'm glad this is kind of gaining the momentum. And Stacy, your presentation was really informative and in helping some of people who are looking into doing some similar projects. And so yeah, I hope I can get your presentation posted on our website, and maybe we can link people to some more resources to go through that permitting process, maybe even identifying what plants they should use. So really appreciate you presenting, Stacy.
Sure, thank you. And I'll send you the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
And then so next we have Urmila from Mosey, and she's going to be presenting on their Marine Gang Explorer program. And that provided some programming to over 2,200 students in 2020. And those were students from low-income schools. And it covered the protection, conservation of the Tampa Bay Estuary. So Urmila, I'm going to give you co-host. Right, there you go. Now you can present if you'd like.
Perfect, thank you. Let me get my screen up. All right, is that good? Can you see that?
Yep.
Perfect. So my name is Urmila Wadnakar. I'm at Mosey, the Museum of Science and Industry, and I'm the manager of group and outreach programs, and my contact information is there if anyone would like to contact me. So we've received this funding for many years, predates my tenure at Mosey, so more than 6 years, to provide programs for children in our area, so Hillsborough, Pasco, Pinellas counties. And traditionally, we've done the Marine Gang Assembly program, which looks a little different now because our instructors wear masks. So we do continue to offer that program currently, but obviously last year was much different than any other year. So we did switch to a few different formats as well. And then a few years ago, we decided to kind of expand our audience. The assembly program, which you can see on the top left, has animals. It has mascot-like costumes that our instructors wear, and it's very fun and engaging. It's a show. It's a lot of entertainment, comedy, things like that, and it basically tops out at maybe age appropriateness for first into second grade. So we do that for pre-K through second grade. And we wanted to sort of expand that to a little bit of an older audience. So a few years ago, we introduced a Marine Explorers Workshop, which is for 3rd through 5th grade. And then we've also added some elements that makes it appropriate for middle school as well. So we had those two going pretty strong. And then last year, we, because of COVID and school closures and all kinds of stuff happening, we made some modifications to both programs so that we could offer them in person if the school was willing to have us there, and we're allowed to. And we also offered both of them virtually as well. So that bottom screen is like our Zoom shot where we would be broadcasting to, sometimes it was one class, sometimes it was a whole school. And each class had their own smart board. And then we also had some e-learners joining us from home as well. So we used the chat functionality, we used hand raising, we used whatever we could to keep it as interactive as possible. So I just want to take you guys through what an assembly program might look like. So we do have several different organisms that we might find in the Tampa Bay estuary. We did try to find as many anatomically correct ones as possible, but they're hard to get in giant form and fluffy. So we got pretty close, I think. So we do have a shrimp here. We have a dolphin, and then we have a turtle. And then the character in the middle, that character's name is Drats, and he's kind of a litter bug. So he comes out at the very beginning of the show and kind of litters everywhere. And then throughout the show, we're sort of examining each piece of litter and exploring how that might affect the animals and plants in the estuary environment. And then at the end of the show, we have Drats and plus a few volunteers from the audience help clean up that litter. I believe we skipped the volunteer part this time, unfortunately, because we did want to maintain social distancing, but Drats still helped clean up that litter. So that's our program for K through 2. And here's some screenshots of what that looked like on Zoom. It's obviously not quite as engaging. It's more like watching a TV show. But I think we were still able to hear a lot of the kids having fun and applauding. And we were able to do sort of a song and dance number. So it was still a lot of fun. It's probably not something that we want to do going forward. We would probably do it a different way. If you know, a global pandemic should happen again, we would be prepared for doing it a little bit differently. And here is our Marine Explorers program. So we were able to do most of the things that we did more as demos. A lot of these things were hands-on, but we did turn them into demos. And we were able to send a list of recommended supplies to each class that we booked this program with. And so if they did have those supplies on their end, if they had, if they were able to follow along with some of the demos, we did recommend that they do that, but we didn't require it because we did want people to participate as much as possible. And we included our trash timeline, which sort of looks at each type of garbage that you might find and how long that piece might persist in the marine environment. And then this was sort of a fun thing that we included in our virtual programming to sort of you know, take a step aside from the webinar view. Is we had something called an Explorer Cam. So it was a small camera on a gimbal, so the person shooting it can kind of go around and do some close-up shots, do some movement shots, so that it was like that that viewer was really participating and looking at that object instead of sort of seeing it off screen. So these are some shots of our Explorer Cam. So again, we thought that the first version went pretty well, and we did that, you know, we pivoted. So we did that fairly on a short advance notice, but we do have some ideas going forward to keep some of our virtual programming and how we could kind of improve the things that we're using to have the optimal engagement. So from last year, here's some numbers. So as Alana said, we were able to reach 2,254 people in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco County. And about 5% of those are adults. So about like 1 teacher or adult to about 20 students. And we generally reach about half and half for our Marine Gang Assembly. which is K through 2, and Marine Explorers, which is now 3 through 8. And these are usually fairly typical of the numbers that we receive every year. But last year we did do our virtual program, and 3/4 of our participants came from virtual programs, and 25% of the people we reached were in person at their school. So we're really happy that some of these schools still allowed us to come with all of the modifications and everything. I think that it really helped that we've been visiting these schools year after year, and I think that trust and relationship helped, you know, like, hey, Mosey's coming and we're gonna provide quality programs and we're gonna take safety into account. And we did communicate a lot of our safety protocols with them in advance to make sure that all of that was okay before we visited any of the schools. So in all, we visited 16 elementary schools. We actually visited 2 housing complexes, 2 preschools, and we did do a program for Girl Scouts, and we had 42 Girl Scouts sign up for that. And those Girl Scouts go beyond these 3 counties as well. So in all, we had 4 programs in Pinellas, 4 in Pasco, and 13 in Hillsborough. So next, like I said, we have some ideas on what we want to do going forward. We don't expect that once things go back to whatever normal is, that we'll go back to what we used to do 2 or 3 years ago. We want to keep some of the things that we've integrated and also work on some new things as well. One of the things that we really wanted to do last year was to take part of the Marine Explorers program and turn it into a board game. We thought that was a much more fun way of interacting and something that the kids can do on their own without us having to be at the site to facilitate. Last year was not the best year to prototype this. Kids weren't in school, sort of touching game pieces and having kids sit across from each other was not the best situation. And then if you look at our prototype game board on the right, and on the left is when we had Mosey closed, all the schools were closed. This was probably about exactly a year ago. We were sort of prototyping this program during a staff meeting, and I was kind of on the floor. I had a phone sort of jerry-rigged on top of some things so that everyone can see the game board. So we did it with our staff to prototype the mechanics of the game and kind of get feedback on that. But we realized this is not the best way to interact with students at all. So we just kind of put a pause on this one, and we're going to be finishing that up this year. What we also did was this year, we introduced some low touch options for interaction through Mosey. And so through this funding, we're going to be creating 2 Mosey in a boxes. So they are activities, about 4 to 7 activities per box that schools can rent from us. So the 2 boxes we're going to create through this funding is Marvelous Marine Mammals, and also another one called Wild World. So that one, Wild World, will be more for older kids, 4th and up about. And then Marine Mammals will be 2nd through 8th. And so through both of those boxes, we really hope to talk more about conservation, stormwater, trash, littering, all of that stuff. And we do want to make a few improvements to our virtual and in-person Marine Explorers offerings. We want to have something that's a little bit more modular. So depending on the audience that we get, we can sort of make things more advanced or more beginner level. So we've purchased a coastal watershed model, which will help us model a few different things. And we're modifying this so that we can add a few Tampa Bay landmarks. So Mosey will be on there. We're figuring out a few more things that we can 3D print and put onto the coastal watershed model to make it a little bit look more like home, to have those familiar landmarks. And then we've also purchased a stream table that we can use during our virtual workshops as well as our in-person workshops to model erosion and weathering. I would love to do, like Stacy presented, the shoreline. We'll be able to model that using this apparatus inside a school. So in addition to showing pictures and videos, they would be able to see a model version of the real phenomena in their classroom. The other thing we're doing is we want to create some outdoor social distance activities that students can do with their teachers without a Mosey facilitator being there. So we're creating a life-size manta ray puzzle. And so this will be made of flooring. So you can see the flooring on the left right here. Each of these pieces is about 2 feet by 2 feet. And so this puzzle will be 6 feet by 8 feet. And this is our trial. What we want to do is, this is a pretty easy puzzle for anyone, right? So we want to be able to have a few kids do this puzzle. We want to put some information about manta rays and their habitats around the puzzle and possibly on the back. But really, this is a prototype for a life-size whale puzzle. In the past year or so, we've really been focusing on creating experiences and even products that are that have a memorable impact on our participants. And I know that I don't think I'll ever have the opportunity to swim alongside a whale. But hopefully this whale puzzle might give kids that same impact and that same feeling of awe. So our puzzle is going to be 50 feet by 16 feet. And currently we have our Mosey artist sort of working on the manta ray puzzle. So he's going to be painting the manta ray on these floor puzzles, and we're going to seal it. We're going to cut it in the shape of a manta ray. We're going to test it out, see if it's durable enough for thousands of kids to use in a year, and then we will move on to making our whale puzzle. And again, we will have some facts and some statements on there about how we as humans can impact whales, and also everything that a whale would eat, and everything that a whale might live around. So we really want to focus on not just the organism itself, but also the ecosystem. And here's a little picture of the markup. It looks like it'll be about 116 2 feet by 2 feet pieces. And we do hope that students will be able to do this in their gyms, or maybe outside on their playground or their yard, and sort of make it into like a 45-minute activity. So we're looking forward to seeing this. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this will turn out. I'm super excited about doing it, and then like laying near the whale's eye and having someone take my picture. We'll see, maybe I can present that next time. So that's something that we're really looking forward to doing this year. And then one more thing that we're looking to do is sort of expand beyond the K through 12 audience that we have established. And we want to go more into upper middle school, high school, and even college. So we want to do a citizen science project related to sea level rise. And we've received funding from the Museum of Science in Boston, who did a similar project. Their project was about extreme heat. And so what they've done is created small stipends that museums can apply for, and they pick one of 4 environmental hazards. So we've picked sea level rise, and the goal of the project is to recruit local citizen scientists. So our goal is to have middle schoolers, high schoolers, and college students, and then run that citizen science campaign to gather data. And the second part of it is that we take that science data and we try to impact the local civic environment. So we would like to work with local community resilience partners and establish a way to make that data useful, to put it to use. And then the last part of it would be to coordinate a forum, and it can be virtual or it can be in person, depending on where we are at the time, to sort of look over everything that we've done and figure out what that data is going to be used for, and really get some general public, not just scientists or not just science interested people in that conversation. And we hope to do a project like this every year. It's not, Mosey has done a bunch of citizen science campaigns before, but they're sort of few and far between, and nothing that has longevity. So we really want to focus on this to do year after year. And that concludes my presentation about how what we've done so far and what our plans are for in the next couple years. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know. You can also contact me if you have any questions, or if you have any ways to collaborate with some of the things that we're doing. We always love working with community partners. We're a small team, but we like doing a lot of things. And I know that partnering with community organizations is a really good way to make a higher impact together. So I'll stop sharing and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Urmila. I have a question for you. So on that slide where you have the different counties that you've presented to and the number of schools, are those repeat schools? Like, do you typically go to the same schools every year, or do you try and do outreach to new schools?
We do a little bit of both. What I generally do is the schools that we've been to often, they often are more willing to have us there. So we try to do both, but we try not to repeat students. So if we've already done a third grade at one school, we will keep doing the third grade every year. So we'll get new students. So we try not to have like third, fourth, and fifth do it at one school year, because then we know we can't return to that school year for a couple of years. But I would say about like 20 to 30% are repeats. But again, it's different students, same teachers, same schools, and then some of the other ones are new. The housing complexes were definitely new, and it's been about 5 or 6 years since we worked with the Girl Scouts on this. So we have like our base of people that we reach out to, and then we try to cycle through those every few years.
Have you thought about providing these programs for Manatee County? Because I saw that they were missing from the list.
We haven't, but we can. I think that whenever we write the grant for this one, we write the 3 counties that are closest. But Mosey Outreach provides outreach to like a 10 to 12 county area. So there's no reason why we can't do that.
Yeah, I think that would be great to reach the students down there. You know, they're bordering the bay as well. Are there any other questions from the audience? I wonder how, or if there's potential for partnerships with, you know, maybe some of these cities or counties to work with some different groups as well. Like I know you said you were providing outreach to the Girl Scouts, but I'm thinking about, you know, shelters and places where, you know, they don't typically get programming like this, but they might find that to be very fun. You know, like I think like, you know, teenage shelters and these places that just are not your typical, you know, school environment, but I don't know, I think that they might enjoy this program a lot.
Yeah, definitely. What we also want to do is once we get the board game sort of ready and prototyped, we want to find funding and have like maybe 1 or 2 sets in each library, 1 or 2 sets in like schools, shelters, like you said, or even like some kid-friendly restaurants have board games. So we really want to get it in places where maybe you don't normally think about learning about the environment. So
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, putting them in the local libraries, for sure. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing your presentation. I know several of the applicants for the Stormwater outreach and education funding, they do apply for funding to provide extra education to students. And so I thought this would be a really great presentation for all of us to hear, and sort of learning any lessons that you had to share about, you know, doing that transition to more online learning, and which I think can be broadly applied even beyond, you know, educational programs for children. So yeah, I see a comment. Great work, Urmila. Fond memories from a school field trip to Mosey many years ago. Yeah, I loved going to Mosey growing up. So thank you so much, Urmila, and we're looking forward to seeing more programs you develop.
thank you. Thanks for allowing me the time.
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out if you have any updates that you want to provide to the committee. That'd be great. So we will continue moving through the agenda. The next thing we have on our list is other items or announcements. I know I kind of flipped it and asked for those in the beginning. But one that I thought I should mention, and I heard Stacy call it out, is the Tampa Bay Environmental Restoration Fund. I know, Joe, you're on the call from the estuary program, but proposals for that are due this Friday, March 19th. And I think they have about $700,000 to go to projects similar to what Stacy did with the living shorelines and other projects to start targeting some of those goals and activities outlined in the comprehensive conservation and management plan for Tampa Bay. Are there any other items or announcements people want to make before we adjourn the meeting?
I do. My coffee hadn't kicked in when you asked for them at the beginning, so it's here now. Yeah, I thought all the presentations were super great. I have 3 quick things, well, I'll try and make it quick, that I just want to plug. They're kind of opportunities, and I want input from everybody on this call, maybe in the chat, or you can email me as well. Maybe I'll start with that. So we got an Adopt a Storm Drain. Well, we got funding to pilot an Adopt a Storm Drain program in Pinellas. And as part of that, I'm going to be doing education and outreach just on stormwater in general. And I'm putting the presentation together, and it's just like, I keep going down these rabbit holes because it's like, anytime anyway, stormwater is big and complex and all the things. But I'm like, what if there was like one thing that you guys would want the public to know as it relates to stormwater, whether it's like something they can do or just like general information? If you could message me or email me, I would love to incorporate that into my presentation. So that's number 1. The other thing is I'll plug my teacher training workshop I do every summer. This year we're actually kind of focusing the theme around water in general. So I'll put the link to that if you guys know of any. It's open to any like educators. You don't have to be a formal teacher, and it's going to be online this summer, just for 2 hours every morning for a full week. And then the last thing is we are we're doing a virtual tree art contest online, but it's not your typical art contest. We're having people incorporate some of the tree calculations, which for those of you that do anything with like urban forestry, it incorporates how trees impact stormwater as part of it, which is why I'm telling this group. So that's for youth. So I'll put the link for that in the chat as well. If you just could help me promote that, that'd be awesome. And that's it. And now I'll shut up.
All right, thank you for those. And yeah, if you want to send those to me, I can make sure that those will be included in, you know, my future outreach emails and things, Lara. And then I see someone, Stacy, you said Lakes and Ponds Day, May 22nd, 9 a.m. virtual meeting. Stacy, do you want to send me a link to that?
Sure, I can do that. And this is, I don't know if people have participated in that every year, or we do it every year. It used to be, of course, in person, and it would, part of the program is to give out free native plants to people to promote some like Florida friendly landscaping principles. So yes, I will send you the link. And last year we did also do it virtually, and we still had like a drive-through plant pickup. So if you want some native plants, want to hear some cool presentations about stormwater ponds and Florida friendly landscaping, this is the venue. So I'll send that to you, Alana.
Great, thank you.
This is Heather Maggio with the City of Tampa. We just had an educational campaign that we put out. It was last Saturday for blowing of the leaf, because we're having that season right now. It's actually raining pollen in Tampa. So our flyer that we had established a few years back in our water utility bill, I don't know if you remember that campaign we did, which is blowing leaves into the storm drains can earn you a ticket. So for residents, it's $75 for the first offense, and landscapers, it's a $450 first offense. So we went ahead and put that on social media. We did get some hits from Facebook and other platforms, but we didn't do the flyer again. We just put it on our website, and then we tried the social media reach out. So I'll get the numbers soon. But I don't know if everyone knew that in Tampa, it is a civil offense. It's no longer a criminal offense, so it's a ticket. So if you get caught putting anything down your storm drain, it's a ticket. That's all I had.
Heather, could you send me that flyer that you had?
Yeah, I can send you the PDF.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's
great.
also available on our website right now under our stormwater page, because we're now mobility department. So you'll have to click on mobility department. We changed our name again. So then you have to look under stormwater for that, but it's under how to report pollution. And then the flyer has the front and back with our city ordinance on the back of the flyer that says where it says in our ordinance, this is how we are going to enforce it. So yeah, it's so far it's getting some good feedback. I haven't really got anything back from communications with anything negative that I had to respond to. So that's a good thing, but it's only been a week and a half, 10 days. So we'll see. But I'll send that to you.
Yeah, and if you could share that. And I know we talked about in the last meeting, getting some more resources posted on the website to share with others. And someone sent me over one of their PDFs, but I encourage everyone, please send me what resources you have that you don't mind if other people, take some ideas from that. Like, Lara, maybe you could use some of the ideas from these brochures for your presentation, or, whatever it may be. So I would encourage you, please send me whatever materials you have that you'd like to share with others. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you all is if you had some presentation ideas for our next meeting, which is going to be July 20th. So I'll open the floor if anyone has anything that they'd like to see in particular.
I don't want to speak too soon, but I'm hoping we'll have some stuff going for our adopted drain. So I'm happy to provide like an update at that time, tentatively. I still don't have blessings from the county to spend our money, and we're 3 months into this thing, but maybe by then I'll have something going. That's an option if anyone is interested. And I won't be offended if you're not.
Sure, no, that sounds great. I'll reach out to you closer to the meeting date to see if you have an update to share.
Alana, this is John. I know we had talked about maybe doing a presentation on stormwater ponds. And so I'll get with you on that and see if maybe either we can fit it into the next meeting or the meeting after. But I'm working with our consultant and kind of doing an educational piece about how stormwater ponds work and what their purpose is.
Yeah, that would be great, John. So I'll reach out to you as well for the next meeting. Right. And if anyone else has some ideas or a project that you wouldn't mind sharing with the group, please reach out to me. My email is just alana@tbrpc.org. So that's ALANA@tbrpc.org. And I would love, any presentation ideas you have or projects, even that you just want me to share in the email that I send out ahead of the meeting. And then, so like I said before, our next meeting is July 20th, same time, 9:30 in the morning, and we'll try and finish by 11, which we successfully did this time. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Alana.
Yeah, Garrison.
Sorry, this is Garrison with Hillsborough again. I wanted to squeak in one quick update I forgot earlier. UF IFAS just finalized and is accepting enrollment for their Healthy Pond certification course. I'll send you the flyer for that to distribute. I went down to Sarasota a couple months ago to do the field day with everybody that helped develop the course, and they did a really fantastic job. It's really well done, targeted towards pond managers. So I'm pushing it out to like our Adopt a Pond contacts or anyone else that contacts me with wanting to know about ponds, really. So I would recommend it to everyone. I'll send it to you, Alana, for distribution to the group. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Garrison. Anyone else want?
This is Heather again. I dropped the link to the PDF that's on our website for anyone who wanted to just click right to the page and you can see where it is. So if you click right on that link.
Great. Well, thanks, Heather. And if there are no other comments, then I will just go ahead and adjourn this meeting. So thank you again for joining us, and I will see you next time.
Thanks to all the presenters.
Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.